Hello, everyone, and welcome to Elder Law Today. This is show number 16. I'm the producer of the show, Robert Allen, and I'd like to introduce the host of Elder Law Today, Yael Hauptman.
Thanks very much, Robert. Welcome, everybody. What I thought we could do today is we're going to get away from Medicaid for a little bit, and we're going to focus on a different topic. And I got an email from a listener last month. And here's the scenario, and this is quite a common scenario that we see, Robert, is that this listener has a situation. Mom is living at home, and the listener has a sister. So we'll say A and B are the children. And Mom is beholden, if you will, to B because B is living nearby, and A is not so near in another state, a couple thousand miles away. And B has been taking some of Mom's money or convincing Mom to loan her money, charging on her credit cards, and really not looking out for Mom's best interests. And the question, and Mom has no ability to resist B. And so the question that was posed to me by A was, can I get guardianship over my mom? And this is actually a very common scenario in which, mom or dad has some issues in terms of taking care of things. And I should also add here that mom has some memory issues, so A will talk to mom once or twice a week, and, she'll ask, well, what happened here? You wrote a check for this, and mom will say, well, gee, I don't know what that was for. I don't remember. And she has memory issues.
Sure.
But from the sound of it, and I didn't meet Mom, but from the sound of it, it doesn't sound like Mom is incompetent. But the question that I get is, can I get guardianship over my mom to protect her from my sister? And what people don't understand is, you can't get guardianship over somebody unless they're first deemed incompetent. And competency is not, I tell people it's not a bright line thing. So, for example, you throw an X-ray up on the X-ray box. Is there a fracture? Do I have a broken leg?
Right. It's evidence right there.
It's there.
Right.
You can't have an argument over that. But when you're talking about competency and you're talking about the brain and mental issues, it's not that easy a lot of times. There are some easy cases. So, you sit down with somebody and they, you ask them, do you know who I am? Dad, do you know who I am? He has no clue. He doesn't know what time of day it is. Though clearly in those cases, Dad's going to be incompetent.
Right.
But the harder cases are there's certain behavior that perhaps Dad exhibits that could even be considered questioning his competency, but he knows what is going on from that perspective. Years ago I had a case where Mom was she was a pack rat. I mean, and she was it was an illness. I mean,
right.
She had so much stuff from floor to ceiling that some rooms you couldn't open the door, and walking in the door there was just a line, that you could barely walk through, barely enough to get through. And the kids really, it was a fire hazard, and it was a real danger.
Right.
And Mom couldn't control it, and she kept saying she would do something about it. She never did. And the kids, we tried for a guardianship. And I should explain to our audience what the guardianship process, and it probably varies slightly from state to state, but generally what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to get a couple of doctors to sign a certification to examine Mom or Dad and sign a certification saying, I think this person is incompetent. But here's a common mistake people make. is they think, well, the doctor can do that and determine competency. And the doctor doesn't make that determination. Only a judge in a court does. The doctor expresses an opinion.
Right. And based on that, the judge makes the decision.
In part.
Yeah.
In addition to that, once, and I'm going to preface this by saying this procedure I'm explaining is based on my state, New Jersey, but you're going to find a lot of similarities. The procedure will probably vary from state to state somewhat. But what then happens is we file the papers, And the court appoints an attorney for mom or dad. And that attorney must then sit down with mom and for the purpose of writing a report back to the judge that says, I agree with this, I don't agree with this. I think I agree that mom is incompetent and I think she needs a guardian. And this person, A or B, child A or B, I feel is the appropriate person. The problem comes in where mom says to the attorney, I know what my kids are trying to do. I don't want that. And I've been in those situations, and it's hard to get a judge to declare this person incompetent when they're aware of what is happening. And in fact, they may, in a lot of respects, not be able to handle their affairs, but they know what is being done.
Right.
So they have that level of awareness. So I get that a lot. And then, the kids get frustrated because they say, well, what can we do? Well, there's a power of attorney is an option. But a power of attorney, which is a legal document which mom or dad sign saying, so I can sign a document that says, Robert, I want you to be my agent to make decisions for me, financial decisions. And the document can be, was typically specific as to what powers I give you the ability to do. But I can undo that at any point in time. So I say to you, Robert, I don't want you to be my agent anymore. I'm going to tear up the power of attorney, or I'm going to revoke it by signing another piece of paper saying, I don't want Robert to be my agent anymore. So that oftentimes doesn't really solve the problem because mom or dad can undo it. And in a lot of cases, mom or dad undoes it because A, or B convinces mom, says, right, undo it, name me. Okay, so that presents a problem. Another alternative is what's called a conservatorship. And I'm not sure how many states have this process, but I explain to people it's kind of a halfway in between a power of attorney and a guardianship. And it can work where mom is not incompetent, but a power of attorney won't work because the other sibling will just go and undo it and bring mom to another attorney to have him undo it. And so mom has to go to court and tell a judge, I'd like so-and-so to be my conservator. Now, it can't be done over mom's objections. She has to consent or request it. But it can be a very powerful tool, and mom can undo it at a later point in time. She just goes back to court. She says, Judge, I don't want this anymore. And that is can be a very good option for some families where you just need something that's going to inhibit the other side of the family, so to speak, from dragging mom. Mom becomes a yo-yo in essence.
Yeah.
Going back and forth.
Right.
And so I think those are some options that are available to people. A lot of times, they hear about the guardianship and they find out that that's not suitable, and then they throw up their hands. And
they think there's no other alternative.
And they think there's nothing that can be done. And, oftentimes there can be. But it has to be handled very, very delicately, very tactfully, because, you're kind of, you're managing through relationships,
Right.
And when you're working with a family and everybody's not exactly on the same page, there's a lot of history, there's a lot of animosity, there's a lot of suspicion. And so it very often is helpful to bring in, the outsiders, the attorneys, the mediators,
the neutral party that,
right,
can just kind of look at it from the outside and maybe see what the family can't see.
Right.
Being so close to it.
And so, those are types of scenarios that we're really seeing quite a bit. I don't want to thank that listener for writing in, because it really illustrates, very clearly a lot of the similarities in issues that a lot of folks are seeing.
Yeah. And I think that's an important point too, is that if you have a question, pose it to us, because I'm sure that you are not the only one that has this question, that there are a lot of people who are dealing with the exact same things that you're dealing with. So you'll be doing a good service to other people by posing your question and having Yale deal with it on an upcoming show just like this. And if you do have a question, a concern, a comment, we would love to hear from you. Our email address is feedback@elderlawtodaypodcast.com. That's feedback@elderlawtodaypodcast.com. And Yale reads all of his emails, so we do welcome that feedback to the show.
Thanks, Robert. I think that wraps up the show for this month, and look forward to speaking with everybody next month.